Hello and welcome. This session is titled 10 Reasons to Look at Using Azure Data Studio. So a quick introduction. What's my goal for this presentation? I have one single goal. That's it, just one. Okay, nice and easy and simple for me, just in case I don't remember what I'm talking about. And that is just that you will look at Azure Data Studio. That's it. You may have looked at Azure Data Studio in the past and thought, well, it's not for me, it's not what I'm looking for, it's not what I'm interested in. Or maybe you've heard of Azure Data Studio and you're not quite sure whether it's worthwhile looking at or not. Or maybe you're a hardcore DBA who thinks that SQL Server Management Studio is the only tool you can use. Hopefully I'm going to give you some reasons as to why you should look at Azure Data Studio and reasons why you should use it. Even just look at it, download and install it and see, could it work for you? Because I think it has many massive advantages. Now, first question we're going to talk about is how much does Azure Data Studio cost? Well, absolutely nothing. Yep, that's right. Zero, zilch, nada, nothing. Okay, £0 and 0 pence. I'm sure every single manager in the audience is going, yeah, fantastic, wonderful, because that's really good. There's no reason, there's no hurdle in terms of money to stop you using this particular tool. The next objection I often get, or probably people think about, is it's only for Windows. It's a Microsoft product, therefore it's only used on Windows. Well, this is not your old grandfather's Microsoft. The Microsoft that I used to work with maybe 10 or 15 years ago no longer exists. The approach is completely different because this will install not only on Windows. First of all, yes, I should accept it will install on Windows, and here's all the operating systems that are supported currently. There's no reason why you can't use it. I'm sure some enterprises out there are still using Windows 7. But, I'm also aware that there are many people in the SQL Server community that use Macs. And these are all the operating systems that support Azure Data Studio. So, using a Mac is not an excuse not to look at Azure Data Studio. And of course, there might be some people out there looking at this session and thinking, hey, I use a Linux distro. It'll never work for me. These are Linux distros that you can also install Azure Data Studio onto. So there are many reasons why you can look at using Azure Data Studio. So, for me, it's very much what I describe as a cross-platform product. Not only installs on Windows, it installs on Macs, but also installs on Linux distros as well. Now, I have to say, unfortunately, being a Star Trek fan, I have to get a meme in somewhere. So this is it. And I did actually find it fascinating that it would install on all these multiple operating systems. And the story behind it is even more fascinating, but I don't have time to go into that. So, time for a quick introduction. My name is Robert French. I'm a consultant with a company called iAcademy in sunny Glasgow. And yes, the sun does shine. It's shining as I'm doing this recording, and it's great. This is my email address, my Twitter handle, my LinkedIn profile, and my blog site. I love talking about data. I also love talking about Azure Data Studio. So please contact me. I'd love to chat about it, but we don't have time right now to chat anymore. So I'm going to move on to the next topic. Rainbow colors. Yay! Now, let's be clear. I love SQL Server Management Studio. I've been working with SQL Server Management Studio for many, many years, and I think it's an awesome product and tool. It's getting a bit long in the tooth. It's up to version 18.6, I think, as of this recording. But, there are some times when it is a little bit disappointing. Yeah, and I have to say, one of the things that really does disappoint me with SQL Server Management Studio is the number of colored themes. I mean, how many can you get in SQL Server Management Studio? Well, first of all, we get one for sure. And the color theme you get is the light color theme. Yay, fantastic. When you install SQL Server Management Studio, you get the light color theme. And sometimes you'll maybe think, I want to change it up a little. So what's the other color themes you get for SQL Server Management Studio? Well, we can get the dark theme. Yay, awesome, fantastic. So how many themes do we have for SQL Server Management Studio? We have got 2. A bit like Star Wars. You got the light side or the dark side. So you got a light theme or the dark theme. Yeah. How many themes can you get in Azure Data Studio? Well, let's have a look and let's see just how many we can get. Now what you do is you pop down to the bottom left hand side, you find the gear icon, okay, that's to manage it, and you click on the color themes. Okay, and it brings up a lovely new window, and if you look at them, you get all sorts of different colors. You get a red color, you get this lovely solarized kind of dark blue color, but hang on a second. I've got Azure Data Studio, so why am I telling you? Why don't I just show you what different colors you can get? This is just amazing. Compared to SQL Server Management Studio, this just blows my mind, I have to say. So let's switch back to the dark default one just for this session. Okay. Now, SQL Server. You want to install SQL Server 2019, you want to try out the new options, what's in there, what can you do, what can you not do. I just want to play with it. So you want to install SQL Server. Yeah, you want to install it on your machine. Yeah, so you're asked this question. And then you're asked that question. Then you're asked another question. Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you take coffee? Do you take tea? Do you take milk with 2 sugars? No, you don't get to ask those last 2 questions, but you do ask an awful lot of questions. And it takes a little while to install SQL Server. Do you not just wish as a developer there was an easier way? You know, people say to me, well, you're lazy, you're a developer. I say efficient, they say lazy. That's just the way I roll. So I say I'm efficient. I like to get things done quickly, easily, and simply. Unfortunately, I don't have a doggo or a hammock at home, but I do like to be efficient because I do like to maximize the use of my time. Now, to use a technique I'm going to show you today, there are some tools required. Like any particular profession, there are different tools for different jobs. Now, yes, the first one is a bit obvious. And of course, you were shouting it. You were going, Robert, it's Azure Data Studio. Of course, you need Azure Data Studio. You're showing it to me. So yes, you do need to download and install Azure Data Studio. You also need Docker. Can I say, if you're going to install Docker on your machine, can I thoroughly recommend installing Chocolatey, then using Chocolatey to install Docker. If you've not heard of that, it's in the references notebook. Okay, I will give you a link to where you can download it all from. But Docker is amazing. I can't go into it. Find out about Docker. Seriously, Microsoft is saying, find out about Docker. Okay, find out about Docker. Python is an amazing programming language. Not the snake. It's an amazing programming language. Find out about it. It's a very flexible, amazing tool to use. And the other great thing I love about Azure Data Studio is that if you open up a notebook and you change a kernel to Python 3, what it will pop out and say, well, have you got Python installed on your machine? You've got Azure Data Studio installed on. And if you're not, it will come up a wizard and actually install it for you. Yeah, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes, but it does all the hard work for you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to decide where to install it. Now, once you've got Python installed, you've got to make sure you've downloaded and added the package Python. So when you open up a notebook, in the top right-hand side here, you'll see the package manager. Click on that and select Add New and add Pandas. Sorry, not Python, Pandas. There you go. Add Pandas and make sure that's installed. That's one of the things you're required to install. Now, to actually use the tool, to install the SQL Server Docker image, what you do is you go up to Connections, top left-hand side. From the little menu that pops out, 3 dots, click on New Deployment, and you get this window popping up, and select SQL Server Container Image, and then click on Select. Now, I've got Azure Data Studio installed. So let's see if we can actually, this is the secret squirrel password I'm going to use, because I keep forgetting it. So Azure Data Studio open, click on Connections, just delete that quickly, and click on New Deployment, SQL Server Container Image. Now, thing to point out here is you can install 2 different versions, SQL Server 19 or SQL Server 2017. Click on Select, and I'm going to name the container because each container requires a distinct, unique name. And this is going to be called SQL Bits 2020. Now watch out for that name because we're going to see it later on. Okay, pop in my secret squirrel password. Click on Open Notebook. There we go. This is built into Azure Data Studio. I'm not doing it. There's nothing up my sleeves. Okay, I'm not hiding anything from you. Now, what I'm suggesting is you run all the cells. I just want to go through them quickly one by one to explain what they are. This one is just checking that I've got all the prerequisites installed. This is all Python, by the way, so you can look at that later on. Okay, so it's checking to make sure I've got Docker, I've got Python, Pandas, yada, all that stuff there. This is going to check to see if I've got any SQL Server Docker images or actually any Docker images running my machine. There isn't any, okay. This is going to pass the information to the new SQL Server container image, Docker container image. This is going to pull the latest version of SQL Server 2019 Docker image because Microsoft actually maintain this, so you're always getting the latest version. This is not your grandpa's Microsoft. I'm going to start the new container. Then I'm going to see, is the container running that I expect to be running? Remember that name I asked you to look for earlier? There it is there. It's been up and running for 3 seconds. And now I'm going to click on here, so connect to SQL Server and Azure Data Studio. Click on that. Click on the hyperlink text. Amazing. There we go. There's the connection there. If I click on new query and I do select at version, because some of you are still thinking, he's at it. He's at this. So I'm going to click on run, and there we go, SQL Server. Okay. Now, one of the beautiful things about notebooks is you can create the code beforehand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on and just connect to the image that I've got up and running, the SQL Server container image. This is just some T-SQL. I will give you a link to where this is actually all stored so you can actually see it. I'm just going to create a new database in my SQL Server container image I just created. Okay, I'm going to create the table. Okay, and then I'm just going to populate that table with some results. So actually some data, you can see the results that are returned. This one is just to show you that it actually returns some data. So all the result sets are stored within the notebook. I'm just going to click on File Save. There's a reason for that. We're going to talk about that later on. Okay, now I've finished with this particular query window. So I'm just going to close, don't save. And I close this one. Okay, and I'm back to the notebook. Now, adulting is hard. So you've got to clean up after yourself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the container image and then I'm going to remove the container image. Okay, I'm not going to deinstall it, I'm just going to completely remove it. So click on this hyperlink text, opens up the terminal window for me. This is just beautiful. And all I do is click on this text, it sends a text to the terminal window, I press enter, that stops the container image. Okay. If I click on the hyperlink text there, it pops it into terminal window, and all I've got to do is pop along to the bottom, click on enter, and it has removed the Docker image. So it's cleaning up after myself. Now, let's just go up here. Now, a moment ago we ran this code and there was a container image running, wasn't there? If I run it again, they're all gone. It's all done for me. This is not your grandpa's Microsoft. This is significantly changed. This is all built into Azure Data Studio. You can download and actually use this functionality right now. Okay, I'm not doing anything special here. Okay, what you see is what you get. So I don't want to save that. That's very noisy, isn't it? That's not good. Okay, so we'll close that one. Let's move on to the next one, extensions. Okay, you're not impressed. I accept that. Oh, you know, tell you what, let's talk about something else then. Let's talk about extensions. How many extensions does SQL Server Management Studio have? Things that you can extend the original product with. 5? 10? I reckon I'm probably about 10. I managed to count my fingers. I reckon about 10, maybe a little bit more. Okay, that is quite good. That's not bad. Yeah, it's pretty good. How many does Azure Data Studio have? As of this recording in September 2020, there are over 50 different extensions for Azure Data Studio. Over 50. I'm impressed. I don't know about you, but I'm impressed. This is why I talk about this kind of stuff. Here's just some of my favourites. I don't have time to go into them all. I'm a Redgate fanboy. I love Redgate. Redgate is fantastic. SQL Search, free product, allows you to search for things within your SQL Server database. Download, install, play with it. It's free. Honestly, it's free. Go and try it. SQL 1, Century 1 Plan Explorer. I love this for SQL Server Management Studio. It makes my life so much easier when I'm tuning queries. The same one's built into Azure Data Studio. Yes, it's a preview version, but a lot of the same functionalities there. So there's another excuse taken out the window why you can't use Azure Data Studio. Notice I'm just knocking them all off one by one. Now, the other big objection a lot of people have, particularly if you use SQL Server Management Studio for a while, and like me, you've got the muscle memory. When I was running that query there to do the select version, I was about to go Control E, and I was like, better press the run button. But this extension here, SSMS Keymap, will take all the key mappings that you remember from Azure SQL Server Management Studio and transfer them to Azure Data Studio. So when you can do Control E, it will run the query. Yeah, there's no longer an excuse. You've got these fantastic reports built into SQL Server Management Studio, built in the SSRS. Here you go. Here's the same kind of reports built into SQL Server, built into Azure Data Studio, and you can add to them if you want. Now, the last thing that many people say to me is, well, you know, it's a Microsoft product, so it's only ever going to connect to SQL Server. No. There's an extension that allows you to connect to a Postgres database instance. This is not your grandpa's Microsoft we're talking about here. Okay, so over to the Marketplace. So if I click on the Marketplace, here's all the extensions that are available. I haven't covered even a fraction of them. There are just so many things in here. There is so much to explore. I don't have time to go on. I'm running out of time, so I need to move on to something else now. So I'm going to close this. Okay, I'm going to pop back here to my list of notebooks I want to talk to you about. And where's my last thing? Notebooks. This is the elephant in the room. Why should you care about notebooks? Well, obviously earlier we had a notebook. Now, this is a notebook, a very simple one. It only contains SQL code. It allows me to collapse it so I don't have to see all the code there, but also allows me to add comments to the notebook. Now, you may not be particularly impressed with that, but one of the things you can do, now, this is the results that came back from the SQL Server container image that is now deleted, but the results are still persisted within the notebook. So imagine you got some diagnostic queries. You've got some queries and you want to get someone to run it on a database you have no access to. Send them a notebook with instructions on exactly how to connect to the database, how to run it. They save the notebook, send you it back with the results. Now, you're thinking, yeah, that's okay. Now, I'm sure you've heard of people like, who was it? Oh yes, Glenn Allen Berry. Anybody heard of that name in the SQL world? Possibly familiar with it. He's written one or two blog posts about SQL Server Diagnostic queries. Yes, I am being sarcastic here. You all know who he is. Just imagine you could send these queries to someone to get diagnostic facts on the database instance you're trying to diagnose a problem or troubleshoot a problem with. They run the queries, they get the results back, and they save the notebook and send that notebook back to you. You don't have to connect to the database. All the instructions are included, including that if they see certain results, they know what to do or what they mean. Do you get the picture here? Notebooks are incredible. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, notebooks, yeah, so what? Notebooks, you can also run notebooks with Python code. You can also run notebooks with, and this one happens to have Python in it, just to show. This is one I've actually used for a session that I did. You can also have notebooks with PowerShell, PySpark. Now, there are some new things coming that unfortunately I don't know about. One of the things that I personally love about notebooks is the ability to use what's called Markup. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Markup. So this entire presentation is built using notebooks. Okay, and all I've done is I've added some images. So you can add images, you can format it, you can highlight it, and they're improving on this. You can put in lists, you can do all sorts. Now, I'm sure in SQL Server Management Studio, you've got projects. Yeah, I think notebooks are so much better. And all I'm doing is encouraging you to go and explore it because I think there's so much more to be found. And yes, I should stop making that noise, shouldn't I? So in summary, what have we talked about? Have I achieved my goal? Are you going to use Azure Data Studio? I hope so. If you want to know more information or see the notebooks, then please go to this URL. That's where I'll upload all the notebooks you're seeing on the right hand side here. Now it's a cross-platform product, isn't it? Azure Data Studio can run all these operating systems. It's got far more color themes than SQL Server Management Studio. You can run Docker containers directly and start them from Azure Data Studio. More extensions as notebook support. It's got GitHub integration. It's got File Explorer. I haven't talked about the File Explorer yet. I haven't looked at the notebooks. I talked about Jupyter notebooks. This thing's upgraded every single month, unlike every single recent. I've just ran out of time, so I'm going to have to stop here. Go and have a look. It is amazingly fantastic, and thank you for listening.